Welcome to the 47th edition of Cool Tools. Well, can you believe it's been that long since I started this series? I'd say we should do something special for the 50th episode coming up, but really I feel like I'm doing something special here for number 47 because in this episode I have 7 of the most interesting tools that I have in my shop, most of which I've been using for years, with a couple of the coolest new tools that I found more recently. This isn't just another Black Friday Buy My Tools ad like you're seeing all over YouTube. This is a show for people who actually use tools, and everything I'm about to show you I have experience with, and they will make your shop time better. So let's get on with it. Sometimes a tool looks like a pretty good idea, but you don't realize just how handy it can be until you get one and you start using it. That's the case with this mini drill press. I bought one several years ago because I needed to drill a perfectly perpendicular hole in an object that was too large for my drill press, and it worked really well for that. Then I realized how many other cool things that I could do with one of these, and so I found myself taking it all over the place. I was boring holes in pipes and 2x4s, doing all sorts of jobs inside and outside the shop until I finally lost track of it. Well, fortunately, Milescraft makes an upgraded version now. They call it the DrillMate 1318, and it's even better than my old one because there are a lot of really well thought out features in this thing. For example, I can easily center holes on the edge of boards by turning the base. It locks right on and it's surprisingly secure. In fact, with the side handle and the little rubber feet on the base, it's pretty secure just placed on any surface for quick drilling. But if I really wanted to stay put, then I can add a chunk of plywood to the bottom as an auxiliary base, and that can be clamped right down. This is especially helpful when I'm boring angled holes, something that's actually more convenient to do with this than it is on my drill press sometimes. Now check this out. I can also add a quick fence to my base for drilling repeated holes equidistant from an edge, which is a fancy word. And the built-in depth stop comes in handy more often than you would think. I like that it's virtually all metal. Only the red parts aren't, so it's solidly built. I mean, if you really want to reef on this thing, you could get the bit to move, but in actual use, plunging up and down as it's supposed to function, it is really precise. Don't get me wrong, I love having a proper drill press, but I still find lots of uses for the DrillMate both inside and outside the shop. It's one of those tools that I'm frequently glad that I have laying around. If you want to check it out, use the link below this video. These little doodads are so simple, yet so useful, they turn a regular steel rule into a multifunctional measuring device. They're little aluminum stops that come in 2 sizes, so they can fit 3/4 inch or 1 inch wide rules. I like to use them in pairs. Here are just a few things I do with them. Let's say I want to lay out a location for a hole 1 inch from an edge. I set the stop to 1 inch, and I use the end of the rule to mark the spot. If the hole also has to be 1 inch from the end, I can do that too. If the hole has to be 1 inch from the edge, but 2 inches from the end, I can use one stop for the inch mark and the other stop for the 2 inches. My rule is now a story stick with those measurements or any other measurements in my project saved so I can precisely mark them again and again. That is really handy for installing hinges and drawer slides, aligning project parts, you name it. If I need to find the center of something, I slide the stop until the end of the rule is close to where it needs to be. Then I mark from both sides, and it's very easy to split the tiny bit of difference by eye. Of course, I can carry a line parallel to an edge too. In fact, you're going to find countless uses for these little things. You'll wonder how you ever got by without them. I'll link to them below so you can double check the details to make sure they're going to fit the rules you already own. They only cost a few bucks each. Or you can buy a set of 2 stops with a 6-inch or a 12-inch benchmark rule, which I've spoken about in the past. These benchmark rules are one of the best kept secrets in woodworking. Super high quality, clear uncluttered scales, and a matte finish that you can write on with a pencil and then wipe off. And they're shockingly affordable. Check them out at the links below. This looks like a regular combination saw blade, but it's not. It's actually a cleverly designed blade that solves a common problem that I'll bet you have in your shop. As you probably know, combination blades feature some teeth that are angled like knives for cutting across wood fibers, and some that are straight like chisels for cutting along the wood fibers. They're very popular because nobody wants to use two different blades for day-to-day rips and crosscuts. And they're usually very efficient, except when you're working with thicker materials. That's because combo blades typically have 40 or 50 teeth, which leave little room for the gullets between the teeth to clear away the fine dust. That's fine if your wood is only 3/4 of an inch thick, but once you get into 1.5 inch or thicker material, the teeth start creating more dust than they can effectively clear, and the result can be slower cutting, more heat buildup, scorch marks, and vibrations that lead to rougher cuts. Ridge Carbide now makes combination blades with fewer teeth and larger gullets to solve this problem. This one features 24 teeth, but don't confuse it with the typical 24-tooth saw blade, which normally has only flat ground rip teeth. The blade still has a mix of rip and crosscut teeth, just fewer of them for better cuts in thicker materials. If you work exclusively in 3/4 inch boards, it may not be for you. But if you cut thicker hardwoods on a regular basis, you will not believe the difference. Like I said, this is the 24-tooth version. They also have other versions with more or fewer teeth, so you can follow the 2-tooth rule as illustrated in this chart. Not that I expect you to buy a bunch of blades and swap them around based on your material thickness. But if you find yourself using 6/4 or 8/4 material a fair amount, then this is an upgrade that may be worth making. I also like that these blades are from a small business that still makes their blades here in the US in their own factory. I like to support that. So Ridge Carbide is pretty much all I use anymore. And these are premium lifetime blades, the kind you send in for sharpening every few years and then you pass them on to your grandkids someday. If you're a serious hobbyist or a professional, it's time to see the difference a premium blade can make. Check out the Ridge Carbide blades at the link below. Every shop needs a set of dead blow mallets, but I've noticed that few woodworking shops seem to realize how useful they can be. These are amazing tools for a lot of tasks, but I use them mostly for project assembly. A dead blow mallet is different from a regular hammer or even a regular rubber mallet because it's hollowed out inside, contains lead shot, and that makes it act differently when you strike a surface. Specifically, there is no recoil or bounce back, which makes it much easier to control your strikes, both in concentration of force and in the amount of force you use. When you combine that with a relatively soft nylon shell, a dead blow mallet can be used to strike things that you don't want to damage, like project parts. We could do a whole video on these things, but here's just one tip. If you need a stronger blow, don't swing harder. Use a larger, heavier mallet. That's why I like this particular set. There are 3 sizes for small and large tasks. They don't cost much, and they are super tough, so you can just beat the crap out of these things. Check them out at the link below. You'll thank me the next time you need to persuade something without damaging it. This one is a bit of a specialty tool that doesn't get much credit until that job comes along where you need it, and then it just comes out and saves the day. It's essentially an adjustable template for cutting rectangles up to just under 24 inches or 600 millimeters in either direction. And you can expand its capacity up to 100 inches or 250 centimeters with optional extensions. I originally got mine to cut a plate opening for a homemade router table. Then it came out again when I needed a sink opening in a homemade countertop. Now it gets used mostly for cutting juice grooves and cutting boards and other odd tasks where I just need neat, accurate rectangles. It's solidly built from anodized aluminum and steel. It's self-squaring and it's easy to adjust. You can use any clamp to secure it to your work, but they do make optional low-profile clamps which keep the surface free from any potential obstruction. And it's compatible with any router. They even provide an anti-tilt shoe for stability while you cut. Like I said, the Varijig is a specialty tool that may not be a daily user, but when you do need it, it will prove why it gets the moniker of cool tools in so many shops. Check it out at the link below. You've probably seen something like this before. You may even have one, but you don't have enough of them. I'm a firm believer that every workshop, every garage, every kitchen junk drawer, and every vehicle needs an 11-in-1 screwdriver. Every time I see one of these for a decent price, I grab another one and I put it somewhere else, so I'm going to have them on hand when I need them. They are that useful. It's deceptively simple. First, it's a #1 Phillips screwdriver. Then it's a #1 slotted driver. Next, it's a #2 Phillips. Then a #2 slotted. Now it's a #1 Robertson. Then a #2 Robertson. Then a T10 Torx. Then a T15 Torx. Now it's a 1/4" nut driver, a 5/16 nut driver, and finally a 3/8" nut driver. 11 tools in one compact package that are there when you need them, wherever you need them. This particular version was made by Klein, so it's of high quality, but it's affordable enough to grab a few and put them all over the place. Honestly, I use these things all the time. Check it out at the link below before they're gone. Some time back, I showed you the ultimate pattern cutting router bit. This thing is amazing, but it's also a little large at 7/8 inch in diameter. That limits the places it can go, especially into tight curves. This is a new version that solves that problem and more. It's a 1/2 inch flush trim bit with compression cutters. So that means the spiral goes in both directions, up and down. That pulls the wood fibers toward the center of the edge, away from both the top and bottom surfaces, so you get crisp, clean cuts with no fuzzy or chipped edges. It makes a huge difference, especially for folks who use templates to make projects or who work with a lot of expensive hardwoods or expensive veneered plywood. This version is also extra long, at 4 3/4 inches, so it will cut materials up to 2 1/8 inch thick. They also come in shorter 1 inch and 1.5 inch cutting lengths, because the longer the bit, the more potential for vibration if you aren't engaging the whole thing with the wood. So get whatever length fits the materials that you use the most. These bits are for serious projects that have to be perfect. Nobody wants to mess up their expensive materials with chip out. And they're just a pleasure to use because they cut so cleanly. If you're ready to invest in the best from a small family-owned business in North Carolina, use the link below this video to check out Whiteside's Ultimate Flush Trim Bits. That's it for this edition of Cool Tools. I'll see you next time. Some folks are a pleasure to work with, like Ken Rizzo over at WoodTurnersWonders.com. That's where I get my turning stuff, like sanding supplies and CBN wheels for my grinder. Seriously, if you haven't seen what CBN wheels can do for you, you are missing out. I'll put a link below this video. Use it and tell Ken I sent you.